Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be doing the weekly metagame breakdown, looking at the top tier best decks in the Explore best of 1 format for this video. We'll do best of 3 for Historic as well as Explore next week. But we're going to kind of take a first look at what Dragonstorm has done to the format. We played a bit of the metagame challenge last week. It was best of 3. The notable deck there was the mono white tokens deck. Kind of your Caretaker's Talent deck. A few folks had some reasonable success, myself included. Had like a 5-win, 4-win. Reasonable to the mono red deck. The mono red deck has been picking up a lot of pace in the format. But we've got about a week of data now, so we can start seeing as some of the new cards have found their way into the format. We're going to look at Untapped GG, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates user win rates, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats. If you want to use Untapped, the link is in the video description. Otherwise, I will paste and timestamp all these deck lists in the video description. While you're down there pulling out the deck list, make sure to like and drop a comment on the video to help support. Free, easy, helps out. We broke 17,000 subs on the channel. Thank you very much. But we still have the goal, 20,000. We're trying to get there. So helps out the channel. Greatly appreciated if you do enjoy this type of content. So we're going to look at popularity of the day, and I actually forgot to switch this to Diamond. So we can kind of see Azorius Control decks are the most played right now. We have the Leyline Red or Rakdos decks at about 8, the Mono Red at about 6. We drop it down to Platinum. We have instances of Mono Black Discard or Demons. The red decks, we have Selesnya in here, the company decks, mono white humans. Those decks are kind of low overall in terms of the win rate. The one thing that I noticed with the best of 1 stats at least, the Rakdos Demons deck is very popular in best of 3. It's a very strong best of 3 deck. Mid-range decks tend to suffer a bit in best of 1 because you're trying to both deal with aggressive decks, combo decks, and control decks. Your tools might not always best adapt. So while we didn't see it in the stats this week, we'll probably see it next week in large numbers in terms of best of 3. So just kind of putting that out there now before people commented, but where's Rakdos Demons? Don't worry, Fable the Mirror Breaker is still a very playable card. But let's jump into it. We are going from April 12th through to the 19th. 8,300 games played, Diamond and Mythic rank. And Niv Mizzet, most played deck. I actually played against with the tokens deck against the Niv Mizzet deck in the best of 3, and I won by time in game 2, where I had like a minute left and they ran out of time, and it was just the most ridiculous game ever. It took like an hour and 15 minutes. But this deck here, you are using the power of things like Ancient Cornucopia to fix your mana, gain you a bunch of life, but you're playing multicolors. And the big payoff card is Bring to Light, kind of your toolbox effect. You can search for basically, provided you have the mana, any 5 mana or less card from your deck, instant sorcery creature. So you could get Niv Mizzet Reborn that refills your hand, Niv Mizzet Supreme, Sunfall or Cover Up if you need it in a pinch. Nahiri can haste out your stuff. You have Combo Hate and Unmoored Ego, and then just every removal spell under the sun. Helix, Vanishing Verse, really good against the aggressive decks. Pulse, Kolaghan's Command, Knight of Autumn, Toll's Mirror can be removal. So a lot of ways to kind of go from there. You also have the combination of Bring to Light and you have Valky here. So you pick up Valky, but then you get to cast Tybalt. So kind of a cool interaction there. Pillage helps you dig as well. Hostage Taker's removal. Alenda's more life gain. Then Leyline Binding as a 1 mana removal spell. Bunch of 5 drops in the deck that help you to draw off up the Beanstalk. In addition, you are playing a bunch of Verges, which play nicely with the Tri-lands. Previously, this deck kind of suffered because you have to play so many Shock lands. The Verges hedge that, just giving you a bit more flexibility. You have a Yorion Companion here. We go to Mono Red Aggro. So 72%, you took your standard deck and you dug through your recently rotated cards, and now you have a top tier Pioneer deck. So most deck from standard, but we add Kumano to it. We add a Bone Crusher Giant. Tursa is a card that's seeing more play. Just flexible, gives you some deck selection, if you would. Looting through your hand if you draw a bunch of lands, or just help you dig, and then late game can help you recast stuff. You're on the Lynx plan to burn out your opponent. Really hurtful against the Niv deck, for example. And then you have access to Mutavault, which is basically your Soulstone Sanctuary, cheaper to activate, works with the most package there. So this is a very aggressive deck. I just ordered my Tursas, so I have these in paper as well now to kind of sleeve it up and run it through. We then go to Jeskai Gearhulk. So really is it Gearhulk, but your new spell on the top end. So how it works is put spells into your graveyard. We previously just had Magma Opus as your big over the top. Well, now we also have Jeskai Revelation. So return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand, deals 4 damage to any target. You create 2/1/1 monks with prowess, you draw 2 cards, you gain 4 life, you pass go, you collect $200. It does it all. So what you're trying to do is play a deck that's using treasures or tokens, so things like Prismari Command, Fable the Mirror Breaker, you have Fountain Port in your mana base, and then what you want to do is take said token, cast Indomitable Creativity, and then it always finds Torrential Gearhulk that can let you hit this. Magma Opus is kind of self-enabling. You discard the card, and then it helps you find it. Fable digs you into the combo. Sublime Epiphany can copy your Gearhulks, get you extra goes. And then the rest of the deck's just kind of an Izzet tempo control deck. Sensors, Spell Pierces, Flood Maw, Fiery Impulse, consider as like hand selection, divide by 0, draw discard, looting effect. You also have a learn board here, so kind of the old standard package of just cards, extra cards in your sideboard that you get out. Moving on, we have kind of a Orzhov Pixie-esque deck in Pioneer Explorer. So your Pixie Shell, you have Vanishing Verse, Shepherd of the Flock, another way to kind of return at instant speed. You can also play the Kieran in this deck instead of Shepherd of the Flock if you'd like. Just another way to kind of return it back. But this gives you another cheap, you could like basically multiple ways to Nightmare on 1 and then Nightmare on 2 with this deck. Fatal Pushes, removal, kind of just ways to get like value effects, extra tokens for card advantage. You have your removal package, Rite of Oblivion, lots of things to sack. Braids sacks a bunch of this stuff, Conceals Flankers, Graveyard Hate, and then Zorlin can rebuy you some of the effects in your graveyard. The mana base here probably can be fixed. I wouldn't play Isolated Chapel. I don't think in this deck you necessarily want to be on Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin's more of like a control card. You're playing a lot of colored pips, so you probably just want to up on the number of Verges in the deck, I would say. We then go to Rakdos Leyline, or basically mono red Leyline. We never actually cast Calicel Sword, so pro gamers always start with 1 to 2 Leylines in play. This deck can win on turn 2. Scamp, Swift Spear, or Heartfire Hero, pump effects, double it, and either fling or self-fling through the Cacophony Scamp. You have your Slick Shots, Ember Heart, so just play out creatures, cast spells, copy them, try to pump through a whole bunch of damage into your opponent. So pretty stock like we've seen it in Standard. It's kind of cheap to build if you're looking to just get started. I love red decks, but this deck to me just feels like autopilot-ish. You either have it or don't. To me, it's not the most fun. I prefer like the other red decks where blocking, attacking, burn spells actually matter. We then go to Selesnya Auras. So Auras in Historic is one of the top tier decks. In Pioneer, it's reasonable. The big card in the green version is you get Glade Cover Scout Hexproof, one of the few Hexproof 1-drops we have in the format. This allows you to, without fear of targeted removal, suit it up, pants it up, and then you have things like All That Glitters, Ethereal Armor to just scale the damage. With Light Pause, you have a toolbox effect, so things like you could basically tutor for like Evasion, First Strike, and Extra Body, kind of get value there. Alpha Authority is another way to give your other creatures hexproof, and then Pseudo Evasion, you have Audacity for Trample as well, so Shram and Light Pause kind of are your engines, and you have like removal and Shelter by Ghost, Protection, and Shards Mage. You have Tameo Safekeeping as well. We then go to Rona or Helix combo, Rona combo, Mono Blue combo. So how this deck works, you have Rona, you have Valley Flood Caller. So both of these cards here, so this taps and taps whenever you cast a legendary card, and then Valley Flood Caller you also untaps your Otters. So what you do is you target either of these with Retraction Helix. This says until the end of turn, target creature gets returned non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So what you do is basically keep casting Mox Amber, generating blue mana, and then it untaps, then you get to bounce to hand. Just do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. You can eventually make this infinitely large as you cast through it. You can bounce things back to your opponent's hand. You can basically mill out your opponent. What you do is you keep generating mana, then you cast Jace for 4 mana. It's got 5 loyalty. You -4 it. You mill them 12 cards. Then you bounce it back to hand, so it still stays alive. And you keep doing that. You mill them out that way. Narset helps you dig through the combo, bounce effects, sleight of hand, curating effects, just to kind of get you to the combo itself. Mutavault also acts as any of these additional creatures, birds, frogs, otters, rats, that can also work with the tap and tap, so you can make an infinite creature that way as well. Moving on, we go to Azorius combo. So this deck here is a control deck that's looking to give 9 lives to your opponent and then have them die. So what you do is play a control shell, you use 9 lives, you get into play, then Coveted Falcon donates it. So you disguise it, flip it, donate it. So you can do this a couple ways. With the 9th trigger on the stack, if your opponent's attacking, you can flip it and donate it. Goes to the opponent, the trigger goes off, they die that way there. Or you can use things like Devastating Mastery, Farewell, or Cleansing Nova. All ways that you can basically exile or remove the 9 lives, and then they lose the game. Otherwise, just kill everything. The big thing here is we have Mistry's Village that lets you basically get an uncounterable effect. So another kind of way to fight through the control mirrors. I played this deck during one of the qualifier play-ins a couple months back. I got like the 6 wins into the actual event with it. It's pretty strong, especially into like the creature piles. One thing to note though against the red decks, because they're starting to bring back Bone Crusher Giant's Stomp gets around damage prevention. So you actually can take normal damage with it. And then Life Loss gets around this. Esper Greasefang. So this deck here is kind of an Oculus Greasefang hybrid. You're doing things like Otherworldly Gaze, Stitcher Supplier, just ways to put cards into your graveyard, Picklock Prankster, and then you either have the Greasefang combo with like Sky Sovereign, Parhelion, or you can get back Oculus with things like Recommission or Can't Stay Awake, cheat it out into play, or just hardcast it. You have a number of 4 power creatures, so it turns on things like Stubborn Denial as kind of a hard counter. Tainted Indulgence, Faithful Mending, just a lot of looting through the deck until you find your kind of combo pieces. But mid-rangey, you could just beat down with creatures like the Oculus Plan, and then you have the Oops I Win kind of combo with Greasefang where you just push out a whole bunch of power. Speaking of Greasefang, we have another version of the deck. This is Mardu Greasefang. So this is what I will be taking to FNM next week. A variation. I finally sleeved up everything. So some of the best of 3 versions are playing Boomwagon. While you can't actually cast it because of the Golgari cards unless you get the treasures, it self-enables in terms of the cycling effect, and then it blows something up upon ETB. This version is going with Valor Flagship. While this can provide more life gain in terms of the once attack, it's a little bit harder to get into your graveyard and doesn't have an immediate ETB effect. So it can still be targeted, for example, with removal. I think the Boomwagon just being removal is a little bit better. Vanishing Verse, really good against the red decks. Bunch of removal, some hand hates kind of mixed in. Your Harvester Fear, this one's on Tursa as well as a way to kind of loot. And then Bale Merc helps you self-mill into the deck. We then go to Azorius Control. So just traditional control. Lockdown's really, really strong in the format right now. Lots of creature decks against mono red. If there's a Corey Steel deck out in this format, which I think there could be, like Treasure Cruise Corey Steel is just very strong. I just haven't had a chance to kind of explore that avenue. But you have Lockdown to kind of eat up the stuff. Then you're just your win conditions to Fairy, Wandering Emperor, Miscellaneous Lands kind of effect. This version is well equipped, I think. Things like Change the Equation, Knockout Blow, respecting the aggro in the format, Settle the Wreckage, you know. They never play around settle until they get settled. Sunfall can also be a win condition in terms of your mana, Restless Anchorage, Hull. So this is looking to go to the long game. Bunch of cheap counters mixed in, and then just kind of value out your opponent that way there. 2-for-1s for days. You then have Sultai Self-Mill or Sultai Dredge. And this deck here is looking to self-mill for value. So Dredger's Insight, whenever one or more artifacts or creatures leave your battlefield, you gain a life, enters, you mill, you get to return something to your hand. Stitcher self-mills, you have Collective Brutality, kind of set up your mill. Quag Feast is removal that mills. Witherbloom mills and is kind of removal. But what you're trying to do is basically self-mill, get creatures back from the graveyard. Bloodghast comes back with a land. Narcomoeba, if you mill over, comes back. Whenever something comes back, you get back Prized Amalgam. Silver Smoke comes back when you gain life. So you have both the Creeping Chill line as well as Collective Brutality can gain some life. Witherbloom can gain some life. You also have Dredger's Insight. So more ways with that. And then Driven Despair. You basically play this for the Despair side. When it's in your graveyard, and if everybody turns their head, we can read this. But basically, your creatures till the end of the turn get Menace. And when they deal damage, your opponent discards a card. Just a resilient deck, obviously very soft to graveyard hate, but can gain life, push through damage, have big life swings with the Creeping Chills. Playing Dredge in other formats like Historic and stuff, at times you do lose to yourself. It's really dependent on which, if you don't draw, if you mill over all your like mill cards and not your actual payoffs, if you draw your Narcomoebas, if you draw your Creeping Chills, it feels worse than kind of milling it over. But there's turns where you'll just like turn one Stitcher Supplier into like Silver Smoke, Prized Amalgam, Creeping Chill, and it just feels like insane to get the value. And then lastly, Rakdos Ugin Ramp. So this deck here, mostly a base red deck. It's using black spells for Fatal Push and Thoughtseize. Mazebind Tome, Ironcrag is ramp, bunch of cheap removal, Fable. And then you're using Ironcrag Feet or Hedron Archive to help you ramp up into Ugin, the Eye of the Storm, that just starts exiling everything under the sun, ramps you, gains you life, helps you find more colorless, or Ugin the Spirit Dragon that just exiles the board for the most part. So the Ugins are playing together, but cool deck. I don't know how, like I guess you have Brotherhood's End, you have some cheap removal. You may want maybe like one more Brotherhood's End against the aggressive decks, but you have the potential just for technically turn 3 Ugin. If you go this on turn 2 with 3 red sources, and then you have this out. So turn 3 Ugin can be pretty devastating in the format. That's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking, and we will catch you next week. Thanks for watching.